Welcome, everyone. Good morning. My name is Yvonne Taylor. This is Dr. Joseph Campbell, and we're the principals and founders of Gas-Free Seneca, a grassroots organization that was founded in 2011. And just to piggyback on what Dr. Vaughn just said, the relationship between citizens, attorneys, and experts is exactly critical, and that's how we won our fight. We're not experts, we're not attorneys, we're the citizen part of the group.
You could say we're accidental activists.
So just a few facts about Seneca Lake. Seneca Lake contains 4.2 trillion gallons of fresh water. It's the largest freshwater body solely within New York State borders. It serves as a drinking water resource for 100,000 people, and it currently happens to be the saltiest of all of the Finger Lakes. Just a little background about us and why we care about Seneca Lake. My family has owned land on the east side of Seneca Lake for generations, and that lake is what brought Joseph and I together as partners. We fell in love. We started to build a house, and then we found out that directly across the lake from us, they were going to put the largest fracked gas storage and transport hub in the northeastern United States. And we were very concerned about that and the future generations, like Joseph's granddaughter, Mary, who's in the picture below. So how do two people who are just loving life and the lake, turn into diehard activists for 8 years? Well, this is our story.
A little bit about the LPG storage project. An out-of-state oil and gas corporation purchased U.S. salt for the sole purpose of converting abandoned, unstable salt caverns into storage for liquefied petroleum gas, millions of barrels. In fact, this is a page from their website when they were still pursuing the project, and they're bragging to their investors they have over 40 million barrels of potential energy storage. This is a map that Karen Adelstein from Frac Tracker made for us a long time ago, our first forum, and the green diamond shapes are wellheads on that property.
Right up in there.
Yeah. This is what it looks like from the air.
Kind of looks like Wyoming and fracking, the fracking.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why are we concerned about this particular project? Well, the caverns I just discussed are basically unstable. They were never designed or engineered to store anything, let alone pressurized, potentially explosive gas. Pressurizing those caverns, we believe, may have caused a spike in the salt content of Seneca Lake, already the saltiest of the lakes. The above-ground infrastructure, they planned on having 6-track rail siding, industrial rail siding. The increase in these giant trucks running our hilly, windy, 2-lane roads, and the risks that the project posed, fires, explosions. I already mentioned that the geology is unstable. It's not solid salt. It's layers of salt and shale. Layers of salt and shale. So, and there are fault lines that run through there that are documented. And most importantly, the fact that this huge industrial facility, the adverse impact it would have on what we call the Finger Lakes brand or community character. We're known for pristine air, clean water, pristine views, bucolic views, wineries, tourism, and etc. So, and why would we want to? Why would we want to expand dirty fossil fuel infrastructure on the west side of Seneca Lake in the midst of what we now know as a climate crisis?
So just to clarify, this does get a little confusing because we were actually facing not one but 2 major battles on the hillside of Seneca Lake. The first being the storage of propane and butane, and all of that decision, whether to permit that project or not, was under New York State purview. And the second project was natural gas storage expansion. And the decision on that was a federal decision under the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, which, as many of you know, rubber stamps anything gassy. But having said that, New York State still had to issue the underground storage permit for that leg of the project. And for reasons that we're not able to divulge, or we'd have to kill you, New York State never did issue that permit. But for those of you who are familiar with our story, you'll know that there was an ongoing civil disobedience campaign that lasted about 2 years. It was probably nationally and internationally recognized, as 600 people got arrested to fight that project. But that was in defense of the natural gas storage project, not the LPG, and that gets very confusing for a lot of people. But today we are here to focus mainly on the propane and butane storage portion of the project. So that's how we'll go moving forward. So, how does David beat Goliath? What we tried to do is model our approach after how people banned fracking in New York. So step number one was to inform the public and grow widespread opposition. Step number two, was to provide the science necessary for the DEC and Governor Cuomo to deny the permit for storage in a way that could stand up in court of law and not be challenged. And finally, we needed to put tremendous political pressure on Governor Cuomo to do the right thing.
So this is where we started. This is our first forum at the Waukesha Glen High School auditorium, where over 800 people showed up. That was the beginning of the opposition to the LPG storage project. A lot of people came on board out of that forum, and it actually started our business coalition growing, which grew to roughly 500 businesses all told.
And then we just hit the circuits. Anywhere there were people, we went. We spoke at any event that we could to try and get the word out. And in the beginning, there's me holding a bucket. Literally, in the beginning, we were walking around asking for asking for change, carrying buckets. But that's how we grew. And then the media became involved, and we were able to get some really good working relationships with the media, not only locally, but also nationally.
The DEC held 2 public hearings, which is unheard of. The first public hearing, half the people that had signed up to speak didn't get to speak because Crestwood, or at that time it was Energy, tried to pack the speaker list. So we prevailed upon the administrative law judge that oversaw that proceeding to hold another public hearing. Now, this is back in September and October of 2011, so quite a long time ago. We went around inviting elected officials, and we took business owners and local elected officials to New York City, to Albany. We held this is our business coalition, or 100 members of our business coalition, at our second forum, 2014, where we held a press conference, and they all showed up to show their opposition to the project.
And that was an important element, I think, once we got the business community involved. And today, our business coalition consists of nearly 500 local and regional businesses throughout the area, between our business coalition and the Finger Lakes Wine Business Coalition, which we helped form. We also spent countless evenings going to meetings with the towns, the villages, and the counties in the Finger Lakes region to educate them about the project, because quite frankly, the Finger Lakes is one region, and if a bad thing happens in part of the Finger Lakes, it has a negative impact on the entire region. And we were able to communicate that to what turned out to be 32 municipalities throughout the Finger Lakes. So everything you see in green is a town, village, or county that drafted a resolution to oppose the gas storage project and communicate to Governor Cuomo that this was not something that was welcome in the Finger Lakes. And even at the very bottom in brown is Schuyler County. They had 2 resolutions in favor of the project until about a week before the permit was denied, and then they turned their decision into opposing gas storage. So 33 municipalities all told in the Finger Lakes.
Better late than never, right?
I was invited to testify in front of the New York State Senate, in which we were able to get additional senators on our side to support us and write to Governor Cuomo opposing the project.
We held countless rallies. We sponsored marches through the streets of Watkins Glen. We went to Albany to make our voices heard. This is a press conference we held in Albany. Invited the press, got some pretty good coverage out of it. These are some of the folks that we loaded onto a bus to take to Albany.
A lot of elected officials and business owners in the Finger Lakes, really dedicated a lot of their time to supporting this effort. Here we are in the War Room in Albany, one of the many meetings we had with Governor Cuomo's administration.
We also believe that you can't just be against something without being for something. So you're against a bad project. You must be, you have to be for. We're opposing dirty fossil fuel infrastructure build out, but clean energy, renewable energy. We held renewable energy fairs. The Finger Lakes Wine Country was named the Solar Champion Award a couple of years ago because so many wineries had gone completely solar. I don't know how many, but it's over 20. Mm-hmm. And we really program of rural health from renowned environmental law firm Earth Justice. They provided our legal expertise. Without them, we probably wouldn't have won this fight. Expert testimony and reports aren't covered, so we did have to do quite a bit of fundraising, and we raised a lot of money for these expert witnesses and their reports, and that was in preparation for this issues conference that the DEC held. That was back in February of 2015. This is Deborah Goldberg, managing attorney out of New York City. She's unfortunately going to retire soon. Oh no. But at the issues conference, we presented oral arguments and presented testimony on things like the cavern integrity. H.C. Clark's report was pretty damning. We had noise studies done. We had a hydrogeologist write a report on the salinity of the lake. We have a safety expert, Dr. Rob McKenzie, wrote a report. And the adverse impacts on the community, our community character expert wrote that the adverse impacts on the community character of the Finger Lakes could not be mitigated. And that's important to remember. Will cause significant and unmitigated adverse impacts on the character of the Finger Lakes region.
So in other words, no matter what the company did, there was nothing they could do to mitigate the negative impact they would have on the wine and tourism industry in our region, which brings in about $3 billion worth of income into New York State's economy on an annual basis and supports 58,000 jobs. There's no way to mitigate that.
So in the last-ditch effort, in 2016, Crestwood downsized the project significantly. It was a sort of we were told that this is their last effort at winning over public approval, but there was no way that they could downsize the project. They're still storing millions of barrels of potentially explosive material in these unstable salt caverns.
Yeah, they kind of hoped that if they eliminated a lot of the above ground infrastructure, that we would go away. And we didn't. We remained steadfast in our defense of Seneca Lake and the fact that no matter what you do, you're going to be storing something in unstable, unlined caverns, and that's simply not acceptable. But it was a small victory, in a sense, because if we had not raised all of those issues, they probably wouldn't have eliminated a lot of that infrastructure. And finally, after 2.5 years, the administrative law judge, it was a very long wait, ruled that none of the issues we raised were worthy of adjudication. Now, many people, including Crestwood, the company proposing this, thought that it was a victory for Crestwood. But what the administrative law judge did was he took all of those expert reports, all of the science, and entered it into the record. So that when the DEC commissioner, Basil Sagos, was able to examine all of the robust information and science that we had provided, he could use that as a way to deny permits for the project.
And in July of 2018, he did. He ruled that the permits would be denied. He disagreed with the administrative law judge in that he said that many of the issues that we raised were adjudicable, but one was not, and that was community character. He took almost word for word from our community character experts' report when he stated that the significant adverse impacts on community character cannot be mitigated.
And so a spontaneous celebration ensued. A lot of Finger Lakes bubbly was poured the night we found out about this decision. That was just at a local winery up the road from us. But we still didn't know whether Crestwood would challenge or appeal that decision until Christmas Eve of this past year. So we awaited that time very quietly, very patiently, sort of. And when nothing happened, we knew that we had really won this case. But because because we'd done all that, we had a lot of connections and a lot of experience, and people were sort of coming to us now, to talk about other threats to the Finger Lakes. So we decided, let's not put all those good connections to waste. Let's form an organization designed to protect all of the Finger Lakes. So in 2017, we aligned with the Waterkeeper Alliance as an affiliate and became Seneca Lake Guardian.
So this allows us to, Gas Free Seneca was a single issue organization, and this allows us to branch out and address some of the many other threats to not just Seneca Lake, but the other Finger Lakes, including the coal ash landfill on Cayuga Lake. We've learned that there are, I don't know if you know what PFAS is, but it's really in the news. These are compounds, PFOA, PFOS, that are extremely toxic. They measure these in parts per trillion, not parts per million or billion, parts per trillion. We want to see these giant garbage mountains in the Finger Lakes, like Seneca Meadows, go away and not have their permits extended. And our biggest fight right now is this proposed, it would be the largest garbage burning incinerator in New York State. And it's exactly halfway between the shoreline of Seneca and Cayuga Lake in the town of Romulus at the former Seneca Army Depot, if you know where that is.
And the plant, if operated, would emit 1 million tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every year, in addition to many, many other harmful contaminants. And this site would be located a mere 3,200 feet from a K-12 school. And it's just a horrible, horrible idea.
And if you're Ithaca should be concerned about this too, because these garbage trucks are already running the roads, coming through Ithaca, running up Route 96. And I actually followed one over here today, and they're disgusting. I mean,
So we're going to end with a plea. If you can take out your phones, take a picture of this, or write the number down. Right now, there is a bill that has just recently been passed by the entire state legislature unanimously in both the Assembly and the Senate. And it's now on its way to Governor Cuomo's desk to be signed into law. It's called the Finger Lakes Community Preservation Act of 2019. If this bill is passed, if this is signed into law, this would prohibit the construction of garbage incinerators in the Finger Lakes watershed. So we're urging everyone to please call Governor Cuomo, urge him to sign this into law as soon as it hits his desk. It's Bill A5029A. And please follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and sign up through www.senecalakeguardian.org for updates. And thank you so much for having us today.
yes, thank you very much.
I think we're just about, no, we didn't run over, but we're very close. We've got 2 minutes? 2 minutes, a minute question. Anybody got a quick one that, no quick questions? We can go over them at the round table, and we'll have a half-hour round table, so, okay. Okay.
I had heard that brine was being dumped into Seneca Lake from other Crestwood facilities. Have you aware of that, or is that?
What I think they're doing is they're bringing brine up. They've got an LPG storage facility in Savona, New York. Right. And what I believe is going on, well, you can't get, the company's not going to, give you any information, but I've seen tractor trailers coming up from Seneca Lake, Savona. I think they're having a problem getting rid of the brine down in Savona.
Yeah, they can't dump it into Cohasset.
Right.
If it raises the river's salinity above a certain point.
Correct. So in other words, as
all summer long, they're going to take it to Seneca.
right. So as long as the flow of the Cohocton is low enough, they can't discharge brine into the Cohocton River. So what they're doing is they're bringing it up, and I believe they're putting it into the brine pond that's up by the road, up by our State Route 14, and that brine pond is used for manufacturing salt. So that's what I think is going on. They're not dumping it into the lake. And they sold you salt. So that's owned by another company that's basically just in the business of manufacturing salt. So we're hoping they're going to be better stewards of the lake than Crestwood was, and not exceed their discharge permits.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we've got Judith Ank coming up on the video conferencing in a moment.